They say that dispossession is to deprive of possessions like land or house. We veterans know about dispossession. We know about military training that dispossessed us from our peace hearts and hurled us into military hearts, then for many, cannoned us to combat hearts. Some might call it moral injury disposition. When you see something in war that you didn't do, or you're ordered to do something in war against your own values, that nightmare gives you years of nightmares. Front bunker watch, Annapolis Hotel, billet for incoming Navy personnel, Saigon, Vietnam, June 1969. My orders were to confront any Vietnamese who loitered in front of my bunker, warned them twice to leave, cursing them in their own language. After 2 warnings, if they don't leave, shoot them. Now in this poem, on this line, I speak to you, Agent Orange. I'm trying to forgive you for giving me 2 kinds of cancer and heart disease, but I can't find a feeling of forgiveness. Now in this poem, on this line, I shout at those who know about the poison of Agent Orange being used in Vietnam, but said nothing. Your silence dispossessed me of my breath, my exercise, my quality of life. Your silence left me with bone marrow cancer, kidney cancer, and an artery near my heart that's 70% blocked, so I couldn't breathe in my walks by the sea. Like my younger veteran brothers and sisters exposed to depleted uranium weapons that cut through the metal of Iraqi tanks but left the battlefield radioactive. You let them walk in poison and breathe poison. You said nothing. Am I angry at Robert McNamara, LBJ, General Westmoreland, Tricky Dicky, or the so-called German genius? Am I angry at can't leave the country because he's a war criminal Bush? Or shoot him in the face, Dick Cheney? What do you think, Agent Orange? I have the anger of 58,000 names on our Vietnam wall in our nation's capital. You see, Agent Orange, I had to write to you today in my poetry workshop for veterans. I had to write to you and to all of them, all the leaders who didn't care that we were answering the call to serve our country and we were breathing poison. You all said nothing. Shame on you. Shame on you. Drifty, don't feel blue. My recruiter screwed me too. Ceasefire. Ceasefire. Siempre. Yeah. Welcome to Second Sunday Jimmy Poetry. That's Jimmy. And he's the one that trained me to do this. That's Alfred. He's our Zoom master, and he's going to make sure that the people on Zoom can also read if they want to. If you want to be on this sign-up list, please let me know. We got a little housekeeping to do. The restroom is right behind me on your left. We got the best deli in La Mesa, in my opinion. And Frank, who is the owner, is a 20-year Air Force veteran, served our country for 20 years. Can we give him some love? Poets have 2 poems or 5 minutes. So if you read a poem for about 2.5 minutes, read another one for 2.5 minutes. So please don't go over 5 minutes. We have a wonderful legacy here of people who understand there's a lot of people waiting to read. So be courteous to them and don't go over your time. Appreciate you doing that. And Jane, where are you? That's our feature. She's here, Jane. And she has her books over here on the author's table. If you will look on the author's table, you will see that we will be here next Saturday for speaking our truth too. And we're gonna have 8 poets that are gonna talk about their poetry. If you're one of the 8 poets, Deborah, raise your hand. Michael, who else? Joe, Chris, okay, that's half of us that will be here. And they're gonna have 10 minutes each. They're gonna read their poetry, but they're gonna talk about how this is really important. Mark, would you hold up your hand, please? Right next to Mark, there are voter registration forms. If you are not registered to vote, grab one, register to vote, because the deadline is 2 weeks before November 5th. So basically, we're not going to go back, and we're all about trying to get Kamala and Mr. Walz elected, and that's what we'll be talking about. We'll be on Zoom, we'll be recording. There's also some flyers in the back for next Saturday. If you want to take those with you and tell people about it, we'd appreciate it. And also my class online for free for veterans, How We Say It, has a new name. Yusef Kuminyaka, a Vietnam veteran, said that what we're all about as poets is the pen moving across the page. So I went, whoa, that really hit me in the heart. And so How We Say It, pen moving across the page. And so it's free. If you're a veteran, you'd like to join us, that should fit your budget. And I'm going to get off my soapbox now because I think you're ready for some poetry. Yes. Did I forget anything? I think I got everything. We have a gentleman I have a lot of respect for. He hasn't been here for a while. He can't come to the stage. This is Eduardo Duran.
Okay, see, I haven't been for a while, but here we go. Tides. When I first saw you, I was drawn to you like the tides to the moon. Your beauty pulled me into the orbit around you. Hold on. It's been a while. Conversing with you often kept me with you. You became my sounding board for my crazy dreams. I returned the favor by listening to your fantasies. Together we soared beyond our limits. We built the puzzle pieces we were missing. We were drawn together like tides to the moon. In my dreams. In my dreams, we're together in warmth and love. Hold on. Oops. Sorry. They said it's been a while. In my dreams, I look into your eyes and study your exquisite face. Trained by your auburn hair, an angel standing before me. In my dreams, you speak my name so melodically. The words pause to listen closely. In my dreams, we walk together along a mountain trail with the scent of vanilla lingering in the air. In my dreams, with your body next to mine, I feel your heartbeat, harmonizing with my own. In my dreams, we're together in warmth and love, unlike the cold reality of the waking world. And one more real fast. Fairy tales at midnight. Fairy tales at midnight, read beneath the covers of our shared bed. Together we journey to far lands where monsters and heroes dwell. And princesses are beautiful, but not as beautiful as you are. And the heroes are far braver than I will ever be. The monsters are frightening, yet not so as fearsome as the real life warriors. At the witching hour, we escape them from our daily toll by reading fairy tales at midnight.
That's Eduardo Duran. Let's give him some real good Second Sunday love. Thank you, sir. You're welcome here anytime. Quick announcement. John Kingsmill was here last week, did a wonderful poem. He's fallen down some stairs and had to go to the hospital. So if you don't pray, if you could send him some positive energy, and if you do pray, say a prayer that he'll be okay, because we like him being here too. Our next poet was the first poet here today. Please welcome June Gressy.
Yes, we do. Thank you. And this is my first time reading from a phone, so give me a break. I'm old. No, Janet. I want yesterday. I want yesterday when the clock was more caring of our hearts, when calendars were not the enemy and the night something we bargained with, one eye open, when plans did not lie in a heap on the floor, edges frowning sharply. I want yesterday when we sat wrapped in worn jackets and rapt attention, talking over bagels and coffee, eyes creased in twin smiles, a long volley of ideas and solutions and hopes rebounding across the tablecloth in a well-matched set. I want yesterday when tomorrow wasn't this particular day, haunting our certitude, sneering as we implored it, stem the flow of the wax, dripping down our final now. Easier on big paper. This one's called The Way Poetry Moves. It's got a rhythm all its own, line by line, rhyme or not. It's music of an inner realm. It comes to you. You can't call it out. A slow ballad or a rumba or a mashup or a rave. Bodies moving, letter by letter, word by word. Feelings, sounds, smells, touches. It comes to you. It is not a mind move. It is something that comes beat by beat, note by note, sometimes ever so slowly, and sometimes it crashes into your soul and screams to be released. Yet it can also be a whirling dervish that goes on for hours and leaves you spent, yet in a glorious ecstasy lying on the floor. Sometimes you have to wait and wait, thinking it has gone to another, leaving you bereft, longing to come into being, to express the inexpressible. But you can't force the moves, or you wind up in a puddle of syllables on the floor. It will grace you only if you are in that space of vulnerability and willingness to be taken to another realm, deep, deep, yet up above as well, crying in joy, in pain, in longing, and love, in somewhere familiar yet new, sometimes like lava promising or threatening to splay itself to the heavens. Sometimes it flows like a newborn creep running for the first time after the heavy winter snows. And when it is out and settled, then you must find the courage to offer its move to others who may begin to sway with the rhythms, the notes, the breathing in and out of what has been birthed through you. And together you realize its connection and yours. And perhaps in that moment of sharing, a new poem will begin its dance with another and another and another. Poetry never stops moving.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the way you write. Give her some more love, please. Thank you, June. Really nice. Really, really nice. So, Mark Mallory, are you still here? This is Mark Mallory, Vietnam veteran and actor. And has been part of some of Alfred's award-winning films. Please welcome Mark.
You know, one of the aircrafts, the fighter planes that flew in the Nam was the F-111 Aardvark, and it had adjustable wings. When the plane would take off and land, it would be out like this, and then when the plane gained altitude and speed, the pilot could adjust it back into a more of a swept wing configuration. And I was standing on the runway in the tarmac at Constitution Air Base one time, watching this Aardvark pilot adjust the wings, and the plane was making a funny sound. I couldn't quite make it out, so I walked closer, and finally I could make out the sound it was making. The wings were going mac. Let's see, what do I got here? Okay, how about this one? Once upon a time, there were two baby skunks, and their names were In and Out. And one day, In and Out went out in the forest to play, and they played in the forest and out of the forest. And then Out came back in without In. And the mama skunk said, "Hey, where's your brother In?" And Out said, "I don't know." Mama skunk said, "You can't come back in without In. You have to go back out." So Out went back out, and he looked in the forest and out of the forest. Meanwhile, In found Out. He said, "Hey, are you looking for me?" And Out said, "Yeah, we have to go back in." So In and Out went back in. And the mama skunk said, "How did you find your brother In?" And Out said, "Instinct." One of my favorite poets was the famous war poet, Wilfred Owen.
Yes.
Familiar with him?
Yes.
And he'd been writing poems from the time he was a little boy, and he had already become quite famous when the First World War broke out, and then he went on to become historically famous as a war poet. But one of my favorite Wilfred Owen poems is one that he wrote in 1914, before the war broke out and before he became a soldier. And I really like this poem. It's called "The Sleeping Beauty." Let's see if I got it. Traveling through a southern realm in youth, I came upon a house by happy chance where dwelt a fabulous beauty. There romance flew fairly until I lit on truth. For lo, the fair child slumbered, though forsooth she lay not blanketed in drowsy trance, but leapt alert of limb, keen of glance, sun to shower, from gaiety to ruth, yet breathed her loveliness asleep in truth. For when I kissed, her eyelids knew no stir. So back I drew, tiptoe from that princess, because it was too soon, and not my part, to start voluptuous pulses in her heart, and kiss it to the world of consciousness.
Wow.
One of his friends was the famous poet Siegfried Sassoon, who had served in the Welsh Fusiliers, and his men used to call Sassoon Mad Jack because he used to occasionally lose his temper and jump up on the parapet and fire his revolver at the Germans. And here's one of his poems. I can't remember the name of this poem, I'm sorry, but it goes like this. Good morning, the general said as we passed him this morning on our way up the line. Now the men that he smiled at are most of them dead, and were cursing his staff for incompetent swine. He's a cheery old card, grunted Harry to Jack, as they slogged up to Arras with rifle and pack, but he did for them both with his plan of attack. Another good poet from those days was Edmund Blunden. And I never forget, he wrote some good poems, but he wrote, when the war was just over, he wrote a letter to Siegfried Sassoon. He said, "No more wars for me, I'm done. No more war for me." He says, "Unless we fight the French. If we have a war with the French, I'll go in a minute." And I guess that's about all I got for you today. Except, well, I probably should point out that 10 days before the war ended, Wilfred Owen was killed by a machine gun fire while trying to get his company over the Selma River. So That was all he was in for. He was done at that time. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark.
Like the in and out stuff.
Yeah.
If that's the way, you can use your 5 minutes if you want to. That was really good. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for coming. Jack Stewart Smith is a retired pipe fitter. He's a carpenter, electrician. He built his own little granny place for him and his wife Lonnie. And he's a musician, singer, supports the Sundance, and knows how to move his pen across the page. This is Jack Stewart Smith.
Hello, family. I love you all.
Jim,
Thank you. Need that love.
Jim.
This poem is Blind Wanderers. And we, being blind wanderers, may limit ourselves to past imaginations that our elders held close to their hearts, they being less informed long time ago. We now have telescopes and microscopes, seen more than they. But is this revelation enough to form for certain conclusions? What human mind can comprehend infinity in its entirety? Or is it best to say there will always be more? Once there were gods that ruled over this tiny earth, and perhaps some heavens and hells. The universe seemed so out of touch, yet we being blind wanderers search. Listening closely to boundless insideness, studying, sharing, deciphering, to where are we headed? Best we find our connections, our reasons to stay alive. Cherished ancestors will never be forgotten. In 1,000 years, may we be remembered as well for the contributions we have made. Hello, dear family. May I please call you family? In 1 billion years, our systems will be ancient. Will our truths still abound and resound? Everything in its allness as we see it today will soon become another layer of sediment. Our stories uncovered in studies, will we leave our mark? Thus, we are a succession, our true value being part of a process, lending our hands to those that follow, learning and sharing our voices, our energies becoming limitless for each. And we being blind wanderers will live in the stars' light, suffice in realizing our journey is our home. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, and always nice to have you and Lonnie here. Thanks for coming. He was a high school history teacher for 2 millennium. He has a wonderful reading voice. He looks like someone from the 1850s because of his beard. And we're always glad to have him here. Did you bring your books today, sir?
I have one book. If anybody's interested, I'd be happy to part with it.
Jack Ernest Nelson, give him some love.
I'll count that as a promotion. This is Chris Ernest Nelson. And this little poem will be appearing, enshrined, I should say, in this year's San Diego Poetry Annual. I don't know. Let's make all of my mistakes before I read. Here it is. A second look. It was all revealed in that second look, keener and more piercing the first. A look that proffered something more. It was a look. Was it a look of purpose or passion? A question? Have we met somewhere before? Did it all begin with those inquiring eyes, with that furtive yet probing look? A look offered like a blessing in the temple, a tender nod, stronger than a passing fancy. Something more like recognition, like we were old friends, like we knew each other from another time. Were you my master when I was your slave 1,000 years ago? Or was I your brother, your mother, your wife, or a comrade who fought at your side, or an enemy who gave you to the earth? Was I your anointed lord, or an eager lover, or all these things in long times past? Or was this look the first time I saw you, yet prophesied in so many lifetimes of knowing you yet to come? A look that spoke of a love being born in a new now, a first breath after coming up from the depths of loneliness and longing, a first taste in the feast of togetherness that celebrates in both time and place. Thank you. This is Tell Me. How does it feel to be possessed by a miracle in the breath of holy fire, fully awake at the center of a pyrrhic vortex, racing toward its event horizon to be swallowed by God? Tell me how it feels when the sky bows down and all the stars gather together in surrender. Tell me how to meet with wonder and the power of purpose and meaning. Tell me how to stand firm against the hot winds of terror as I climb the golden stairs to heaven. Tell me, will I meet my beloved and feel at home again? Thank you for listening.
I imagine that's how Walt Whitman might have sounded. You know, if you ever try to read Leaves of Grass, you know how comforting that might be if he sounded like our brother Chris. Well, this next poet is a friend of Dolores Fisher, so he's a friend of ours. So give a first time here welcome to Jordan Shea.
All right. I've never done this before. Just want to throw it out there. Wasn't even planned. Okay, I'm just gonna read out my thoughts. It's like 3 different kind of poetry things. Okay, so let's put it out there. Sorry. Distant eyes and gray skies, I can tell they are all lies. Depression can get to me from being honest and clear, but I hope that you can get to me first without them staring you away, my dear. My words, my rhyme, our love has done a time, but I don't know if I'm in love anymore, and I hope that it's fine. I bleed through my emotions and get lost on these pages. I hope you won't mind. I want you to stay the same way. How dare the sun rise? Does it not know I'm sad? How dare the moon rock? Does it not know I'm mad? Happiness fades when my depression no longer behaves. My words won't reach you anymore, and I know that now. Late night sorrows and late night pains. I wonder all my thoughts, will you ever love me the same? Okay, that's like the first one. Sometimes I feel like fall. I can be beauty, I could be warm, I can be cold, but at the same time I must fade so you can find something better. That was deep. I ain't gonna lie. I'm sorry. All right. Poetry is coming out of me. I can't hold it in. I contemplate suicide, even though it's a sin. It's hard for me to write down my words. I don't know where to begin. Silence and solace is my home now. I moved in. I haven't left in a while. I hope my neighbor happiness and joy does not come looking in. Thank you. That was like deep. All right. Happiness and joy does not come looking in. Ring the doorbell. I'm still here. Nobody looks for me, but grief, anger, need, depression are all mixed within. All right, so that's like the second one. It's the last one, y'all. Okay. For years I have seen you, my lonely neighbor, hiding behind your door in overgrown grass. For years I have seen you, lonely, thinking about how quick time has passed. I hope that after you're gone, you know I cut your grass, I painted your house, because the beauty about you was that everything around you was neat and clean, but everything within was hollow and unseen. I'm sorry I'm too late to pour into you. That's it, y'all. I'm sorry to say that.
Young man, you're the reason that we do this. You're a really strong writer. You got a really nice reading voice, and we want you to come back. We want to encourage any young people to come back. And can we give him some more love, please? So if you are on Zoom and you want to read, please, please, please let Alfred know. You got 2 or 3 over there, okay? So he's got your names, and I'm going to put you on the list. So maybe after this poet, we can do room Zoom like that, so we can get those people in. If you haven't signed up on the sign up list, please do. I'm going to bring it up to a young man who drove all the way from Oceanside to be here. Junior, come on up.
I want to share with you guys stuff that I put together in a body work that I call the anti-social media soundtrack, but has nothing to do with being antisocial or against social media. It's just more of me expressing my defiance of being introverted, being made fun of because I'm introverted. And so there's 2 I'd like to share with you guys today. The first one is Unpopular Armada Art Studio Anthem, and that's kind of like my goal moving forward is to develop this digital art studio. So it goes like this. This is for the person who always feels like they never fit in. This is for the person who unfortunately seems to have more enemies than friends. This is for the person who others. This is for the person who others are quick to label loner, but actually, if you actually take a look, they're highly independent. This is for the person whose primary way of communicating isn't through socializing. Instead, it's through various forms of artistic self-expression.
Yeah.
So, I'll give you guys a choice. You want to hear something like upbeat?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. All right. So this one, I'm gonna like. The intensity level is gonna get really high. I'm just warning you now. And this was I wrote mainly to share or use on a girl that I would spend the rest of my life with, but I yet to meet her. So rather than keep it to my chest, I put it in the body of work. And this one's called Initial Drift with the Touch of Gray. There we go. I want to initiate deep angle drifts throughout your mind. With the corner entry speed that far exceeds the tracking capabilities of any radar that you can find. And then carefully caress each one of your clicking points as the RPM steadily dips down to about 9,001. At that point, I could feel the energy combust through your chambers like a solar flares that erupts on the surface of the sun. And while we're approaching the first corner's exit, keep in mind the examination of the remainder of your curves is only just begun. But for now, allow me to complete the transition into the straightaway. Your feedback from my input has been more or less instantaneous, and so I think it's safe to say that I can approach the second corner at wide open throttle because I know the torsion bars will counteract the sway. From left to right, my grip on the wheel is certainly firm, but feel free to let me know if you think it's too tight. And since things are starting to become a bit more technical, I think I just might switch to grip because I can sense that the style of drift is beginning to put excessive strain on the limited slip. So let's get on to the next because I already made the adjustments right with the best lines intersection mine's apex. This feeling I can never accurately describe. All I can really say is that it's so much better than getting drunk off of alcohol, high off of drugs, and even engaging in that thing called sex. When you truly express what you aren't really concerned about getting other people's respect. But I digress. So let me divert your attention back to the track and then to the third corner that highly resembles a tightly coiled letter S. Honestly, I have no idea how I'm supposed to manage this, but observe carefully as I maneuver it with finesse. And since time is a diminishing resource, it's a limited constraint, I hope you don't mind if I take a little bit of time to suggest that after I draw the lines across corner number 4, if you haven't done so by now, eliminate thoughts of pursuing a configuration with the induction is set up to be forced, because all that's really needed is to be naturally aspirated, to flow like water, and to allow nature to take its course. I just used something that involved a lot of automotive and motorsport terminology. And so what I'm trying to say may not have been fair. Now, if I may, let me present it a different way. I want to experience you. And when I say that, no, I don't mean it in a way that's sexual. It's really hard for me to put this into words, but I also don't mean it in a way that's intellectual. This conversation is more than likely taking place through screens, and so it's lacking. In other words, it's not contextual. So I have no choice other than to leave you with 2 options. You can leave it all behind and understand this in an instant, or continue to be led by everything you're being fed, and then maybe one day come to an understanding that's eventual.
Penny Perry, are you ready to read, ma'am?
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Yes, she
I'm ready.
told me one time she heard me read up in Fallbrook, and 3 women walked out of the room. They were so disgusted with my social justice point.
Yes.
This is a lady that I love. I've been loving her for years and years. And Bill, you're in Fallbrook and I'm down here. Nothing's going to happen, all right? But this is Penny Perry. Give her some love, please.
Thank you, Jim. Loving Tiffany. My 7-year-old son wore a dress. His favorite doll, Tiffany, had dyed blonde hair, a skimpy gold skirt, white go-go boots. I was sure my son wanted to be Tiffany. I was sure I didn't want him to be Tiffany ever. How could my son love this Las Vegas showgirl of a doll when men measured my worth by the size of my breasts, when my cute femaleness had cost me jobs and income? I was letting my summer blonde hair grow out, packing up my boots and mini skirts. I was righteous woman kicking into her jeans. I dreamed of tearing Tiffany apart, burying parts of her in my garden, an arm and gold bracelet in the roses, a kneecap in the onions. But I knew another Tiffany would appear. I sent my son to a therapist. Make him like himself, I said. She said I was a domineering mom. He needed strong, successful male role models. Martin Luther King, JFK, Cesar Chavez. There was no more Tiffany. There was an absence, an abalone shell without the muscled flesh. When I whispered, I love you, my son did not believe me because he knew I did not love Tiffany. My son, a shadow teen, lived a monk's life. In our small town, the TV repairman was the leader of the Klan and ran for Congress. My son escaped the notice of the skinheads. Sometimes I wish for Tiffany, but if she appeared, I would aim for her knees. Now, my son, the reader of men's biographies, is an AIDS activist. A pink prom dress hangs in her closet. Dresses hang again in my closet, too. To love my son, I had to cherish the show-off summer blonde in me. Now my wide androgynous arms embrace us all. Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez, me in my mini dress and go-go boots. My 7-year-old son wears a prom dress, and Tiffany, bright and lurid in her gold fringe. And I have a second poem. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, and in the 50s, my grandfather worried about Senator Joseph McCarthy. My grandfather changes his name. At the Grand Canyon Red Rock Motel, he signs the register. The shiny Buick out front, my grandmother holding the picnic basket, boiled chicken, glances at the paper, the familiar handwriting, the blue ink. Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, am I some floozy? You have to write a different name, Taylor? She tells the clerk we're married 40 years. Grandpa says nothing, steps out for the valise, polished shoes, a tuft of thin blonde hair. His purple shirt looks like an orchid in the Arizona heat. In the hot motel room, they sit on twin beds, whir of the fan, the only sound. She unpins her long hair. One of your practical jokes? My grandfather, the lawyer, says, Taylor is now our legal name. She sighs, thinking about the engraved flatware, cloth napkins, tea towels, the H she sewed on each percale sheet and pillowcase. I've been Mrs. Hyatt since I was a girl. What about your brothers and sisters? Who goes and changes his own family name? His jacket and the tie still on, he sits stiffly. She is already down to her pink corset. Muschenetz, she mutters. She has never called him a name directly before. Plenty of blitzkrieg the dictator out of his hearing. He opens the paper he bought in Kingman. Senator Joe McCarthy, with his wide forehead and dark eyebrows, glares at him in black and white. She studies her husband as if he were a rare eggshell brocade she has never seen before. The bump on his head, a wound from a rock thrown by a Jew-hating soldier in Russia years ago, shines in the dim motel light. She thinks of the stories she heard. Her husband taught himself English while driving a bus, the book in his lap, eyes on the road. How proud he was to follow Teddy Roosevelt up San Juan Hill. How he always stopped to salute the statue of the soldier at the Veterans Cemetery. He loves this country that gave him his freedom. Sweat, which she calls perspiration, dripping down his neck. He sat bent all summer over the McCarthy hearings, as if he were sitting Shiva. Muschenetz, she whispers again. You think the fat senator is after you? She frees the chicken leg from its wax paper and handles it to my grandfather, his hat still on his lap. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. I'm really glad that you made it today. Thanks. Please come next month too.
Okay.
We're 3 poets away from our feature. And the next 2 poets are all friends of mine. They're veterans, and I thank them for their service. This next poet is always sending me stuff on Facebook, and he's an observer. Like most of us poets, as we write, we want you to know what we're observing and drawing pictures of that. And he does that very, very well with his writing and also with what he sends out. That's art. So this is a very strong artist. This is David Legenhorst.
Oh, guys, take me a while.
You're seasoned, you're not old.
We have all the time in the world. Don't let me fall down here. I did that before.
Oh, oh. Wait, talk to him.
Thank you, Jim.
First of all, let me say, I can't believe how much my life has expanded and been more joyful because of the people. You have added a whole new dimension. That's cute, young lady here. I mean, everybody, Jack, but the young kids here are what really thrill me. Junior just blew me away the first time I heard him. He's 50, 60 years younger than me. He knows more about life than I do. What the hell's going on with that? I mean, no, he's wonderful. I just love seeing young people. So I'm not going to read one of mine today. I'm going to read a poem in my friend Finn Hall's book. I think a lot of you know Finn. He's in Scotland. He's not a cat lady, he's a cat guy. He's a lot of fun. He turned 70, he put together a book called, and he named it, I Ache in All the Places I Used to Play. And he just turned 70. He got 70 plus poets who were 70 plus years old to send him poems about being 70 plus years old. Fortunately, one of mine is in there, and it was called The Golden Years. Anyway, this is out of Finn's book, and it seems like an appropriate one today. Make friends with others who aren't your age. That's most of the world, I guess, right now. What can I learn from a friend like you? Oh, a friend once asked me, what can I learn from a friend like you? At first glance, you might wonder what we have in common. 3 decades between us, and yes, I identify there's something about you. Sparkle in your eye. Tell me your story. The things you think I should know. Years of wisdom that can help me grow. And you ask me anything in return. Thanks for opportunity. I would never presume to be wiser than you. The knowledge I have is due to those paths I have crossed. The little I've gained so far is but a drop in the ocean compared to what there is to know. I may have more experience than you, but your experiences are different to mine and just as important. We've both gained from knowing each other. It's the knowledge of knowing that will help me keep me growing. All I would ask, if it's not a difficult task, is not to dwell in the past. There is a difference between nostalgia and memories. There is no good old days, because in between the happy happenings, the sad ones existed too. For everyone that made you smile, another one made you blue. They say that you only remember the good times. Sure, that is often the case. And sometimes the bleak time fades with age, sometimes. But if you were never down, how would you know what up is? You won't always be a young pope, but I rejoice in being this age, my age. And whilst there may be things I wouldn't do again, as I am now, and I'm going to change the word here, I am now an octogeranium. He was I'm an octo. They help me make who I am today. Slow down? What now? Not me. You see, I still have lots of things I want and need to do before my time is done. As long as I can walk, think, and well, not quite run, but keep on doing the things I do, trying new things, expand my range, never, ever being afraid of change. I realize that I will not be in the first choice in bikes, but that's all right. I've never been ingrained in any game, but I still have plenty to say, and without arrogance getting in the way. It's your loss, not mine or ours. The older folks, well, we will tell our tales, share our words. And if you think that is absurd, that's your problem, not mine. I am aware that I am in my later stages. So that means not caring for fashions or the latest rages. But I can still develop, still do more, learn from younger voices. Despite my years, despite my time, I will keep transforming. I am Septimus Fun. Not gonna take care of that. I will fall off. Then you fall down anyway. Oh. Dang, good to see you. Thank you, John.
Anything below the knees is lost.
David, I was born in January, so I'm a step 2 Aquarian. Our next Navy veteran lives right behind me. He's when I think of him, I think of community. He's a man that works and teaches poetry in the mental health community. He's also doing some gardening at a place here in City Heights, or down in City Heights, and he helps to water the plants. And I hear him and his wife talking all the time. Their house is about 10 yards from my house, and I'm always hearing, "Dear, are you okay? Dear, let's do this. Dear," he's a very good husband. This is Michael Turner. I forgot your last name. Thank you, what they said.
No, we just all gotta live in respect for each other, you know? I lost my poetry today, so I wrote a new poem, first draft. It's gonna be workshop with Joe, Joe, James, Brian, Bruce, and Billy Kay next Thursday. So this is what it's gonna sound like. Can't help but think about it on a foundational carrier frequency, because everything is related on all the different planes of existence everywhere. On the level, by the highway, down to a sacred fountain made by our sacred mother in an aquifer full of love. Can't help but think about it. Existence is all there is on many levels, finds a way to live this sacred code, to honor all beings on a road of connectedness, to a place to name, to no place to name, or even live on in a purposeful life, making joyful noise. That's all I got tonight.
Kathy J, are you ready to read? Kathy J on Zoom.
Yes. Did you see her shoes?
Let's give Kathy some love. She's going to read for us now.
Thank you. Did you see her shoes? He said he was coming over tonight to see my silvery, sparkly shoes. We'll be having dinner at the cusp There will be plenty of booze. I'll reserve table 32, the best spot on the 11th floor. Debbie will be there, plus me and you. They are actually sandals of leather. Just looking at them will give you pleasure. The sparkly part is made of something called diamonel. Not one has fallen out yet. If it did, you'd hear me yell. As I walked into the restaurant, the servers and chefs said, "Look at Mrs. J. She's all dressed up. It's going to be a good day." He drove up in the black Lexus. What would happen next is a lot of laughs. Look at those shoes as I put out my foot for all to view. Onlookers marvel and ask, "Where did you get those shoes?" I said, "The store had closed." And then the girl said, "Get Mrs. J some booze." Later out on the balcony, I put my foot in his lap so he could get a better look. He touched my leg and said, "There's nothing about this in the rule book." I said, "There are no rules here. Come into the light. Have no fear." Thank you. I'm on the same topic, shoes. I didn't want to lose the ability to wear the ones I wanted that gave me the blues. This is not the life I choose. I was too embarrassed to tell anyone this news. They called me Imelda Jr. back in the day. Open that big file drawer and look at the collection of Mrs. J. It was a drawer for legal-sized files, an extra wide one where I had piles of 4-inch spiked heel made of leather and cork. Some of them I got in New York. The cork ones purchased on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. They had metal on the sides. They were very pretty. I had knee-high, brown patterned snakeskin boots. I would wear them with my suits. I had them in a special holder in my 404 square foot apartment. I was well known in the Pentagon City Nordstrom shoe department. The orthopedic doctor said I had to switch to 2-inch heels. My identity is what he steals. Pain and foot problems caused me to stop. I had to give up a lot. It's no longer fun to shoe shop. Each pair had a story, a location traveled to, and why I was going in my glory. Red boots from San Antonio, pink ones from Virginia. They are all gone now. It's sad what happened to me. I still have a fabric flower pair that I never wear. After the New Year's Eve party, a pair of snakeskin gold Prada shoes kept for a photo shoot. They are so cute. I have to wear a power step insole in everything I wear. Comfortable Piccolino shoes are all I can bear. Sent my lilac suede Manolos to a friend in need. Told her to sell them on eBay. Couldn't wear them anymore. I had to concede. I'll put on some Chanel No. 5 to forget the pain. Memories of a former life, wearing fancy shoes on Northwest Airlines planes.
Thank you, Kathy. It's time for us to bring up our feature, Jane Muschenetz. And let me tell you a little bit about her. She graduated from UCSD, and then she got to MIT, where she graduated with a master's in business administration. I heard her read her poetry and the first time, and I was just really amazed at the power. If you will check out her books here over in the author's table, when it's time for us to just kind of hang out when all this is done, you'll find that she confronts our government on the shabby treatment our government has followed through with for years and years against women. And she's very vocal about that. She's a feminist, and I saw her in action as a mom at this on the 9th floor of the downtown library. She was really listening to her daughter. She was guiding her daughter And you could tell her daughter maybe didn't want to be around all these adults, but mom was really good at making her feel good about it. So please welcome Jane Muschenetz. And she speaks Russian.
Can you guys hear me? I'm just putting, I've got 25 minutes and I really maybe do go over that time, so I wanna put my clock on. Thank you so much, Jim. Where did you go? Oh, yeah, there you are, for that lovely introduction and for paying attention and noticing me with Eloise. I'm a mom of a girl and a boy, and I'm originally from Ukraine. My family escaped Ukraine from the Soviet Union as Jewish refugees and were relocated to El Cajon. So East County, La Mesa, feels like coming back home a little bit. Yes, thank you. So a lot of the two books that I have speak to being an outsider, to the questions of identity, and also to, this fraught relationship we have with a country that I love so much, which is America and my new homeland and the opportunities it provides. And of course, the opportunities it fails to provide as well. So all my notes are with the full understanding that we are so much better off here. And of course, we can continue to improve and do better. So just that. I had a set list, but then of course I had to read my shoes poem. So we'll start with that. Yes, everyone must write a shoe poem. This is a requirement. So this collection is called All the Bad Girls Wear Russian Accents. And because even though I was born and raised in Ukraine, in the Soviet Union, everyone learned Russian and we happened to learn Russian first. So that's my given language. And those of you who are familiar with the immigrant communities, is we tend to dress up. We tend to dress up for a lot of different events because that is how that's our armor, that's how we show respect. A friend of mine who's from the Mexican community also has this kind of experience. He went to a funeral and asked me, a Russian Jewish funeral, and he was asking me, Jane, why the Gucci? Like, why the heels? You're at a funeral. And so here's the poem called Stilettos Over Grass Plots. I don't need a closet full of Gucci. There are only so many Russian funerals I'm required to attend. It's not disrespect or impracticality. That full-breasted, open-lipped eulogy in brand-name sunglasses, carried groceries across snow-laid banks to feed her ailing parents. Pour open every artery to sharpen the blade of beauty. Migrating birds have their own kind of camouflage. My people wear stilettos over grass plots, outline tragedy with leopard print and lipstick. Lift up tombstones to label check if they're good enough to belong here. It's not necessary, I know, especially since we recognize our flock not by attire, by something more sinister than genuine leather, something behind the eyes, asking. Females of the species, what's the use of being a weapon and not knowing how to wield yourself? Amen. I wanted to acknowledge that so many faces in this room make me feel like home in the poetry world. So many of you were there the first time I stood up to the mic, before I ever thought that getting published was possible or likely or probable, before any book came out. And so many of you have made me feel welcome and have inspired me and encouraged me. So please give yourselves a round of applause for continuing to do that. And being part of this community, I got to meet a wonderful writer, Ari Honarvar. I don't know if any of you know her. She's an Iranian immigrant and she's of Muslim descent. We hang out together, we become friendly, we inspire each other. And when the terrible situation happened, the terrible war happened in Israel and Gaza, we found solace in coming together and continuing to believe in peace, sue for peace, even as tensions on all sides rose very highly. And that's something that this community has made possible, and we continue to make possible, that we, with our differences, can stand together and stand up for good things. And the thing that we could think to do was to write a poem together, and that's what we did. I'm going to share that with you guys today. And the poem was written over several conversations back and forth and incorporates both our ideas. We all want peace so much, we keep killing for it. We keep dying. Peace, a lone word, buried under the rubble. Under the rubble of news, piling, news, more rubble, more ash in the breath, in the heart, a song. The other day, I saw a mother. I will not tell you from which country. I will not tell you if the child in her arms filled her with joy or with grief. I want you to love her, to love her child, to become so full of your own love for two strangers that the flock of wings beating inside your heart would return to them every winter. Not 1,000 years of bloodshed would end it.
Wow.
In this world, with all its despair, there is also you. The ocean breathing in waves upon the shore, it too is full of wonders. Don't try so hard to be remarkable. You have already miracled into being. Sometimes we stand at the edge of ourselves, our toes curling into dry sand. Sometimes we are made almost entirely of desire. Have you also wanted a place to call home? Every shell on the beach was first made to shelter. Every grain of bonding of atoms is a harbor of belonging.
Yeah.
All right, so now to the script. Since I just mentioned the earth, I'm going to skip to the earth remembers her teenage years. How many times she almost destroyed herself. How she was nothing but molten, constantly flaring, combustible. How she just kept erupting under the weight of her own gravity. How alone she felt in what she thought was the darkness between herself and the galaxy that birthed her, without even the moon yet for company. How she beckoned every rock hurling through space to make a home of her. How she cratered, even as she became more solid and cooled eventually. How slow it all felt then, those millennia, which now seem only an instant looking back in awe of herself, of that unquenchable fire still buried deep in her core. How she watches us, the life she brought forth, despite everything. How she forgives our own endless thrashing. How she wishes, knowing already, it could be easier. So Jim, when he invited me here, mentioned that there's a rich history of social activism and justice here. So I feel very much at home, and I felt immediately I should read the following poem, which speaks to the debate of whether or not poetry has to be inherently political, and if poetry that speaks to things that are not inherently political is worthy, and it's a big, huge debate, and here's part of my answer to that. Every poem is political, in the sense that everything is political, even sunflowers. This blue sky stands in opposition to the air sirens above my birth city. This deep ocean shelters undocumented oil fields. The great mountains in the distance are unapologetically arresting. Everywhere you look is a reason to protest. Everywhere you look is so beautiful. Never forget, every tongue is a borderland. Every heart, a homeland worth longing for. I'll jump in a bit more into point of order, which is a fun for me, I know it's serious, hard-hitting, also humorous collection. And for me, it was fun because it combines my poet self, my artist self, my mom self, and all the different selves I've always felt had to be separated from each other, corporate self, the business self, into one work of expression and art, which is a continuous passion and goal of mine to continue to come fully, to bring myself fully to everything I do and not feel like I have to constantly self-edit. So in it, there is visual poetry, and there's also data and bar graphs. So I encourage you, even if you're not going to buy, no pressure, please do come take. Actually, Mark, could you please grab 2 or 3 of those and just pass them around so people have a chance to look at them? They look like this. It's this one, 2 over. Yeah, just because I'm so proud that I did it and I want people to see it. Yeah, just pass it around. Oh, спасибо большое. There's a Russian speaker in the house. The idea about this collection is that it has a QR code. It is a data-based approach to make the case for change. And the beginning says, too often women and change makers are dismissed as hysterical, emotion-driven, irrational. And PowerPoint turns this notion on its head, presenting meticulously researched data poems to make the case for a more compassionate world. This poem called Point of Order. Oh, and by the way, of course, I'm a big punster. So PowerPoint software was used to make some of the poems. It's about power dynamics in our society. They're pointed poems, and a lot of them have the word point in the title. Thank you. So PowerPoint poem Point of Order, or Progressive Kind of Danger, came from the US Supreme Court confirmation hearing in 2022 for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. And there was a quote which made the news. There was very big controversy because Judge Ketanji Jackson refused to say the definition of what a woman is. It was a baiting kind of question, trying to set her up. And this is the quote: "The fact that you can't give me a straight answer about something as fundamental as what a woman is underscores the dangers of the kind of progressive education we're hearing about." And that was from Senator Marsha Blackburn, another woman. Here's the poem, Point of Order, or Progressive Kind of Danger. And each line is cited to a news article backing up what the line is saying. In North America, a woman is 2 times more likely than a man to die from a heart attack in an emergency room. 32% more likely to die post-op if her surgeon is a man. 70% less likely than a man to be a surgeon. 20% less paid than a man for the same labor. Fielding 60 to 75% of unpaid emotional social labor at home, child, elder care, housework, meal planning, etc., and work, committee chairing, volunteering, event management, etc. In the United States, a woman is 32% more likely than a man to live in poverty, holding 2/3 of all student loan debt, 5 times more likely to die during after giving birth than in a comparable country. White. Her first appointment to the United States Senate happened in 1932. Her first appointment to the United States Supreme Court happened in 1981. In the case a woman is Black, her maternal mortality rate is 3 times as high as a white woman's. Her pay rate is 20% less. Her incarceration rate is 2 times more. Her first appointment to the United States Senate happened in 1993. Her first appointment to the United States Supreme Court happened in 2022. The next poem is called 100% Mom. And it looks like this. It's a data poem. It's made out of real statistics that if you scan the QR code, you can click through yourself, and I hope it encourages people to do that. And it's made by using PowerPoint software. The poem describes what is described in the statistics, which are a PowerPoint poem about women and labor. Moms are 5 times more likely to die giving birth in the US than moms in other equally developed lands. Some of these moms we can't save, but most we can. Black and Hispanic moms die more frequently than do white. We study this, make charts, policies, and write about labor, paid and unpaid, status, values at the hour. What is the real cost of good? Is knowledge power? The wolves at the door. When the doorbell rings, I think like a mother thinks, in tiny steps, bounding to the entryway. My heart inside my body, which is inside the bathtub, ready to leap. She is neither city folk nor country wise. My Zoom-blooded girl, my nightly tucked away treasure, will she remember to not blindly open the door? Like the little wolves in the story, little goats in the story who outsmarted the wolf? Or will I need to rise, slick and streaming through the house, grab her to safety like all good mothers coiled to spring? Even the ones taking a quiet bath on the last day of their menstrual cycle, and especially the ones who follow the new cycle. Will she remember to pretend, like I taught her, that no one is home? Come back to me, even though I just told her Mama is not to be disturbed unless it's an emergency. When the doorbell rings, I think, like a Jewish, Muslim, Asian, Black, Indigenous, etc. mother thinks, of all those things I have not yet taught her. This next poem comes with a content warning. It talks about brutality towards women, and if for your own well-being, you need to step out for about 2 minutes, please do so. There's no judgment if this is not what you're in for today. While that can happen, I also require a bit of audience participation for this one, and I feel like you guys are going to be game. So we're going to practice. When I point to you like this, I would like you to say, for your own good. Ready?
For your own.
One more time. Perfect, excellent. So this poem refers to brutality toward women as reported in the news about recent and historic events. It's called Breaking Point for Woman, Life, Freedom. They will tell you it's, and they will bind your feet. They will beat you to death for not wearing your headscarf, and they won't let you into med school. They will rape you in the streets and force you to marry at 13 and at 9 and at 6 years old and at no years at all. Infant girl, when all you take from this world is a breath, they will take it back, smother you, and for your mother's own good too. They will lock you in the house as slave labor. They will burn your face with acid, burn you alive at the stake, at the public bus stop, cut you off from your friends and your God. They will cut your tongue out, cut your hands off with an axe, cut your clitoris from your body, cut your access to healthcare, and tell you this is how it is, how it has always been, how it must and should be, and for a long time, for a very long time. You will believe them. Make believe. Let us pretend, just for this lifetime, that we are not angels, that we have no wings, no powers beyond the ordinary to perceive, to dance with universes that our senses, being only human, cannot taste possibility and time as anything but linear and fixed, cannot mix truths bursting in and out of existence, varied in color, wavelength, and dimension, infinite, nuanced, burning with intention, the multifaceted, exponential potential of all things eludes us. Let us despair and fret over our impediments and limitations as if they were reality. And mortality, wait, did you forget already? Did you pretend too well? I'm gonna close us out. Fill that. Yeah. So there's a lot of data poems, a lot of art poems, visual poems in this collection, and also a lot of fun science poems that play with history and facts. And is there any scientists in the room who have any kind of scientific background? Excellent. A physicist by chance? All right, that's okay, that's fine. We can all pretend like we're physicists for this one because it was inspired by a physics a bit of information. And the information is this, that a cup of the sun's core produces 60 milliwatts of thermal energy, which by volume is less than that of a human, which produces 350 milliwatts of thermal energy for the same amount. So in a sense, you are hotter than the sun. There is just a lot less of you. You are 600% hotter than the sun. Wow. Speaking roughly, in terms of heat generated per every human inch you give off more milliwatts. Surge, energy, only the sun is bigger. It matters. We're all blinded by love. the endlessly expanding, contracting universe is just another metaphor for longing. And life, its own purpose. How dazzling this science. Consider falling for a physicist. That painstakingly slow way they undress mathematical mysteries gets me every time space continuum. Part, particle, atomic, incandescent. You are pound per pound more life source, more bomb, more season spinning, searing center, heart, engine, radiating nuclear dynamic than the sun. Can't look directly in the mirror. Small wonder. Imagine none of us powerless. Thank you.
Hey, Muschenetz, let's give her more love, please. And we have this tradition here at second Sunday that when all the last poem is said, we kind of hang out a little bit, have some more coffee, whatever. And if you want to approach her and talk to her about her influences, maybe purchase one of her books, please do. I think you're going to be available for signing. That'd be all right. That'd be good. So she'll come over to the office table after this is over, and we'll take care of that. We are being recorded today. Alfred, our Zoom master, is recording us. After this is over, he's going to hang out until it's saved. And then in the next couple of days, we'll put it on the internet. If you want to see yourself online, please tune in to the recording that Alfred's doing today. Especially, we want people to remember to vote November 5th. Please pick up one of those flyers, let people know about next Saturday here at the Space Bar with 9 poets that are going to be reading really amazing poetry and talking about election issues. There are voter registration forms over on the author's table. If you are not registered to vote, please take one of those, register to vote, because we're not going to go back. And we're asking you to please make sure that happens on our own small way. We want to make sure that Kabbalah knows that the Space Bar and San Diego are behind her. All right. So that's pretty much everything I need to say. Let's continue on with the poetry. And Sarita Martin, are you ready to read?
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Jim and Albert, for making it possible for some of us to attend on Zoom. I love this. I noticed that Jane read a poem that was about a physicist, and that made me think which one I wanted to read from my new book, Holographic Reality, Poems of an Eclectic Life, that just came out yesterday on Amazon. So I will read this one about a physicist friend of mine that I met a number of years ago. So it could be that some of the details in it are a little bit different nowadays than they were then, but it's called Critical Matter. The physicist I met in Kelly's Irish pub says the weapons they make can't possibly be worth the harm they cause. He calls himself a nuclear nerd with a head too big to fit through the security door where he's called to do inspections. Says in years to come, national resources exhausted, physicists will show the cost-effective, earth-friendly benefits of using nuclear energy for electricity. Escorted by an armed guard, He passes through a heavy fence. Tennis shoes squeak on the slick floor as he enters a windowless, thick-walled room. Bushy Einstein hair flows behind him like a wave of gray matter. In this massive tomb where they do weapons, he sits with other big heads at the boardroom table. Some sip coffee from paper cups, others inhale oxygen. With the force to destroy everything, they believe all we see can be formulated into cold linear equations. They discuss buying uranium from Russia, Canada, or Australia, how to make safe bombs and keep them from terrorists. But at the end of the day, he meets me at the Irish pub, orders a burger, chugs single malt scotch, beer chasers, leaving a generous tip. He says the power of the bang frightens him more than I'll ever know. I have one more that is a tribute to a haiku poet friend of mine that just passed away. And it actually could be a tribute to anyone's passing. And it is, let me get it up here. Voyage to a Constellation for Deborah. A new life begins when the heart stops pumping red rain. She is at the sumato between what she knew and what's to come. Ephemeral hands gather shells for her first poem in a journal of hereafter. A butterfly lands on a sandcastle. A lute with radiance of new rain is the first sound she hears. Rivulets tighten the strings. She's learning to leave behind the useless vessel of her body on the flat map of this physical world. Sea no longer chills her pulse. Slowly the new ship's sails fill with the expectant ever after wind. A constellation knows her name. Earthly clocks pace 12 to 12 without her. Rivulets tighten ropes on ethereal sails. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Jimmy Collins trained me to do this. This is one of his strengths. There was a mural on that wall and some more of his paintings when we started this. We were here after breakfast at the Big Kitchen in South Park. And he said, let's start this. So we've been doing this here or over on Adams Avenue for a long, long time now. It's over 20 years. And we appreciate it when you come and support. We appreciate it when you come and read. We appreciate it when you come and keep his legacy, his spirit alive. Jimmy Collins was a Black Panther back in Indianapolis, back in the day. He would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and he would go to a kitchen and cook for children that were going to go to school without breakfast. And the Black Panthers at their height in 15 cities, they fed 9,000 children a day that the government should have been feeding. And so he wanted this to be exactly what that sign says, a place where no matter what culture you are, what color of skin you have, what ancestry you have, what blood's in your veins, you're welcome here. Thank you. Kathy Crone, let's give her some love.
I think so.
Right.
Tossing the hot potato. The Marlboro man slings his gun, and you really, really want to cheer. but he forgot his badge. Then, as God has commanded, please tell all Americans that the issue of reproduction is their own goddamn business and not yours, unless they insist. I mean, really cajole, badger, and brandish. Then you might get weak and mention it as a side note only, unless the Secret Service begs you. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Well, of course, women have a right to a decision that for their own sakes ought not to be taken lightly. Enough said. Reactions to the morning news. I wonder if there's a church where I can find sanctity without reserving a fire that will burn from my heart outward, some toxic chemistry lab experiment that my essence will suffer in for all eternity and be pro-choice. A teenage Black woman in Mississippi listens to the cicadas at night on one of those humid, heavy pressing moonless nights. She whispers, "Dear Jesus, help me get an abortion." She pleads every which way for bus money. Tell me, is this one nation under God? And all we stand for. Fighter frets, grabs his gray hair desperately, wrings his hands and resumes pacing. Fighter has the queen's ear and nearly controls her army, but the queen is like a puppet attached to many strings. Something is required of her, a carefully worded statement to calm the public, halt the army. The hour is late. The queen feels that to sleep now would be criminal. She forces herself to stand up. She approaches her writing desk, and the words won't come into her mind, so she dangles her quill pen and taps it. Tonight we rest assured, an invasion we can repel, standing where we are near the wolves' den. We will not throw them scraps of our hatred. We will stand behind our lines, a refuge for those who seek asylum.
Thank you, Kathy. I forgot to say, if you don't have the money to buy Jane's Books Day, you can go to www.palmfrondzoo.com. That's PALMFRONDZOO and .com. And so since this is being recorded, whoever's going to see it on the internet, maybe they'll also be able to support Jane. And we really appreciate that about you. Thank you very much. This is my sister, Dolores Fisher. Give her some love, please.
I started to walk up here going, and doing the follow song to my brother. I also thought about doing, another one, but we'll save it for the more political arena. But I won't. This is entitled 241 Mortimer Street. Willie and Georgia. Soft silhouette smile from a silky brown memory screen. Dancing wisps of aromas, dark blood red roses, yellow golden tulips, crowns of purple lilacs, fragrances of my past, inviting me into a 6-year-old's backyard haven. Daddy's bright red 3-swing playset, functional for the children. Mama's colors splash rock garden, forbidden to romp through, but not functional at all. Artistic, because she loved fragrances and she loved flowers. Morning yawns warmly onto sleepy eyes. Daddy is at work. Big Simpson, the brothers, are at school. Our wood brown square radio on top of our fridge, sitting in the middle flanked by bread box and napkin holder. Mama's listening to Jimmy Lyons and the Lions Den again. A few minutes later, Art Blakely and his messengers swing a rift, lay down a groove so tight. I run from bedroom to kitchen to living room in uncontained delight. Grabbing her apron, I twirl and twirl and twirl. Mama's brown slit eyes look into wells of melody within my young soul. She leans back and laughs, hugging me tight, waltzing to the old oak upright piano bench, sitting me gently but firmly down, facing the keys. She says, "Now, young lady, turn to your lesson." I touch the cover of the John Thompson piano book, and those of you who ever took piano years and years ago, you know that red cover from John Thompson. Mama glides to the kitchen. She clicks off the radio. "You are not getting out of this so easily, Dolores." She smiles, comes to the old bench, sits on my right side, placing my hands on the keys with her hands beside mine. She guides me through my practice. Mom was also a pianist and just would not let me get out of anything, no matter how much I laughed and tried to be cute. Childhood memory, town of Tonawanda, New York. Firefly flight in late summer air, just after dusk glow. Shimmers and sparkles, bright little lights on ugly little bugs. Pretty lights, though. Firefly flight. From front porch chairs, fills warm evening flourished with sad delight that dog day dreaming must come to end soon. Autumn breezes will march the center stage and bow.
Thanks, Dolores. Thank you very much. Our next poet, his mom, I took his mom to Tijuana to my dentist. So from now on, she's been called my dental buddy. Lee, would you raise your hand, please? That's my dental buddy right there. Raise your hand. And her son has been elected the International Beat Poet. This is Chris Vanoy.
I was and still am. Canterbury. I sit in the guardian's chair, separates the monks from the commons. There is a worried hole here where I rest my hand. I walk past two of the priests and noble gentlemen in the footsteps of mighty kings I come to serve, as hungry pilgrim that I am. Jesus told them to build the church, and they brought him stones. Windows laden with colored leaded glass, sets by the sweat of laborers' brow, whose voice is now lost in the silence that stitches together the arches and spread like fingers above my head. The community table is empty, and the candles rest upon the opposite sides that have stood for centuries covered with white cloth whose folded corners now kiss the cold stone floor. Gargoyles grin from their perches as they tempt the saints and curse the demons, regaling me from their decisive perches high above my head as the bell in the tower rings 11 times. It signals that my shift of penance is over. I shuffle off to the University of Higher Learning, this hungry pilgrim that I am. Wrote that in Canterbury, England. Like Allen Ginsberg, I churn inside this dream that is not a dream, and this night that is not a night, but the dawn of a new day. You lie silent now, sleeping the sleep of kings, and king you were of words of sperm, and king you were of words of music, of sperm swilling and protest, uttering profanities that rent streets, calling to blue mornings and red lights, smashing nights along the empty sidewalks, where the beat slowly disappears behind the curtain of closed eyes. They will publish your last book in commemoration as you pile again from the bookshelves and from old news clips. You will spit from the stage of my memory, gray beard of a giant man, your shoes tapping the polished floor as you rage on, delivering your words to the wise and foolish alike, your words that have graced the ears and eyes of many men, your words debated by senators and prostitutes, tow-headed boys from drooling their way through university lit courses. I see your shadow. It catches at the corner of my eye as you steal away with this life in your pocket, a pocket with your hand deep inside of it, fondling your dick, remembering all the ones who have enjoyed it or who would have liked to. The cannibal of your soul ate only greens and meditated on the blank verse of society as you chanted mantras to Dylan, protesting skeletons of war over the drumming roar of B-52s turning their way to North Vietnam. And all the time you were leaving, constantly moving along the cracked back of America, spreading your seeds of revolution as you careened to the drunken streets of broken glass, where the passed out drunks were spread like almond paste along the steeping sidewalks. You filled the cracks for the best of them when you spread your sheets with writing and love. And when you slept at night, your dreams struggled stiff against the iron pillar of self, stiff against your face. I saw you sleeping inside your matted dreams. I saw you sleeping in boxcars that rattled along the iron road. I saw you raging in Patterson in a night of magic and terror, the picture of your lover placed purposely on the table, covered with his handkerchief, still stained with his semen. I saw you, and then you were gone, traveling a short ways above me, opening your hairy wings, lifting above me, saying, "Right, right, this night of my passing, I will be here above you. Right, right," you said, "do not look up too long or you will stumble over the crumbling architecture of the coming century." You said, "Look down, down at the page and then out into the stub-toed world. Pluck its images off like flies' wings, crush their juice from them, and spread their seed back upon your paper." You said, "Peel back the eyeballs of consciousness, slice open the womb of contemporary thinking, and take out my child with both hands, and report his crime to the Boston Globe." You said this, and I heard you whisper, "Right, right." My head turned down, I wrote pen flashing lightning and thunder, my pen spilling its virgin seed upon the page where it remembers you.
Please remember, Chris Sandelorix will be part of that Saturday show this coming Saturday at 2 o'clock here at the Space Bar. Leilon Gittleson is very involved in the arts. She's a singer, she's a poet. I met her at a John Fox workshop, and you'll be amazed at how she reads her poetry. This is Leilon Gittleson.
I'm happy to be here. As we were driving along University Avenue, I saw a big sign. It said Wong's Kitchen. And I thought, well, I'm Wong. And it sort of flung me back to my childhood. And I realized that most of my poetry has been about my childhood and how my parents ran the first Chinese American restaurant in El Cerrito. And how my sisters, because my parents were always working, they raised me. So next time I'll be bringing a sister poem and sing a song for you. But today I thought I'd share something else, something that I wrote recently. My husband died last year of Alzheimer's. And so I'm in another place and I stopped writing for a while, but I did write this. It's called A Bend in the River. When a wide, wide river takes a bend and twists, I may not notice that I am drifting. My life has taken a turn, and I struggle to get my bearings as I am swept into this new river of widowhood. In Chinese landscape paintings, the relationship of man to earth is depicted by mountains and waterfalls that tower over the minute figure of a man grasping his walking stick and searching for the way. But now, around me, everything shifts. Stars wheel about. Planets go out of orbit. And like a bewildered traveler, I ask myself, what does my small life matter? I have lost my footing.
Thank you, Mylon. Joe Malash is a master storyteller. I met him through his poem, Why is the Scar on the Man? He walked into a Steve Cowett workshop and he was introduced by Steve and I got his phone number and he can't get rid of me. This is Joe Malash.
This has been a really a good reading today. Really excellent. So I was thinking today, and I was thinking about Tang, and how if it hadn't have been for Tang, I would have never known how brilliant women are. And it all started when I moved up onto the Ortega Mountains, and I lived in a little one-room rock cabin. And I lived near my sister, Mary, who would come over and cook dinner. And so one night, she brought some flour in an empty Tang jar. And so she left it in the cupboard. And then I met my wife, and she started coming over to have coffee and read and stuff. And I'd offer her a cup of coffee, and she says, I take cream. And so I went to my sister Mary, and she gave me a Tang jar with some powdered cream in it. So then Patsy comes over, and I said, would you like cream? And I reached in, and I gave her a Tang jar. I said, here's some. And she said, that's not cream, it's flour. And so I reached in the cupboard and pulled out the cream. And she said, did you ever think of labeling?
That has nothing to do with bullying.
So I'm going to read two short poems. Hey, she married me, so there must have been something. Um. The Chippewas have called the first moon in July, the buck moon. And the reason they call it the buck moon is in July, the antlers on a buck stop growing, and then they have what they call velvet, its skin, and it dries up and the bone appears. But they call the first moon, according to their mythology, that's when it happens. And so in the poem, there's a buck moon. But I don't know, I just threw that out. But anyway, this is called Central Valley Interstate 5. July, 10 a.m. The valley is bleached dry, and the temperature climbs slowly as a truck on a steep incline. It's in the next poem I'm going to read, or I don't know where it's at. Let me start again. I just started reading this poem and confused myself. July, 10 a.m. The valley is bleached dry, and the temperature climbs slowly as a truck on a steep incline. Asphalt gleams like obsidian, and sunshine bursts into tiny suns as it hits windshields of oncoming traffic. 6 p.m. The buck moon rises, orange as a sunset, and flowing down the mountain slope. The wind creates a ruckus like mice scurrying under fallen leaves. When evening deepens, nothing is left that remembers the hot air groping like a blind man climbing stairs. Now is the time to clear my mind and make room for moon and starlight. Thank you. And this is called the Gasson Dam Square Massacre. It was May 7th. This is an epigram, I'm sorry. I need the epigraph, but this is an epigram. It was May 7th, 1945, and 2 Nazi soldiers hid in the mayor's office and waited to finish their mission. Kill as many as possible while the German army fled Amsterdam. Below them, children and families danced in celebration. From the harbor, the east wind comes cool as I stand among the 31 plaques scattered across the square and inscribed with the names of the slaughtered. I watch the silhouette of a cloud darkening the piazza with the figure of a cloaked stranger and think it is death returning to the scene of its crime and trying to make right the past. Having none of it, the wind chases a shadow from the square. Then a quilt-like pattern emerges between the bronze plates and bricks. The cloud, the wind, the names, they lead me to this. Tears live for seconds. Burials last for hours. And for 7 generations, sorrow endures. Thank you.
Marjorie Pizzoli is a visual artist and an outstanding poet. This is Marjorie.
Hello. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to be here on the 17th because the haiku poet that Sarita was talking about, that's when we're going to have a Zoom celebration of life and a reading. And from her book, Vital Signs, here's one of my favorite pieces of hers. Deborah. And I'm not gonna pronounce her last name because I will botch it, but she's just an amazing person. Unresolved issues. The black hole in the center of our galaxy. And I'm really drawn to haiku because it's short, sweet, and to the point, like my girl, and she's in the galaxy, and that's why that poem really, really hit me. And I also, because I write heavy things, I like writing really like weird, short little things. And I'm gonna see if I can remember them. Fishnet legs, catches a day, red shoes gut. All right. Diddled and goosed, spork and knife, the cow has landed. And this one's kind of, in terms of learning things on social media that I really didn't think. I thought it was a false thing, but maybe not. Tramp stamp, bum fight tattoo, a fans only fail. Can you guess what this gal had tattooed on her forehead? Begins with a T, ends with a P. Who we don't want to be president. Seriously, this gal. She gives dumb blondes a bad name, so I can just imagine she's missing her pencil and her tampons behind her ears. So that's all I'm gonna say. Well said.
I don't know why I thought about it point when the cow lands, but that's what I thought about. Thank you, Marjorie. Carol Moscript, are you still here? She had to leave, okay. So we're gonna have our last but not least poet. Please welcome Janice Alper.
Trying this for the first time, I didn't bring paper today. So one of these days I'll finish my volume called Traversing the World, which is my travels on 7 continents. So this is the place that's been on everybody's mind this week. Bastille Day, Paris, 1985. Hold on. Munch flaky croissants, sip cafe au lait. Stroll hand in hand along Boulevard Haussmann toward Eiffel Tower. Draped in red, white, and blue. Parade of cadets march in straight long lines along Champs-Élysées. Lay a wreath at Arc de Triomphe. Crowd sings La Marseillaise. We hum along. Thrum overhead, planes fly by in formation, like a flock of gulls going home to roost. A lifetime ago, I remember a war when I held Daddy's hand, looked up to the sky at planes in V-shape, blackout shades on windows, soldiers marched smartly down our street. Now, dusk descends in Paris on Bastille Day. We meander to Point Neuf. Sky glitters. Fireworks sparkle in moonlight. Thank you. And I have another one if I can find it. I'm doing this really by the skin of my teeth. Here, oh, it's here. Got it. A couple of months ago, I was commissioned, you'll pardon me, to write a poem for a concert of healing, and they wanted the spoken word. So I wrote this. It's called Bandages for a Broken World. I scoop a bird with a broken wing off the ground, caress its feathers like hairs of a newborn. A caring vet repairs the injured bird. A second chance, it flies into the sunshine. Oh, that it would be so simple to call a doctor, to apply a bandage to heal the hurts, wounds of our damaged planet, our battered world, where flimsy gauze covers crevices, struggling to heal. While talking heads condemn one another, motherless and fatherless children cry out from their beds of straw as their stomachs rumble with hunger like drones in the sky. Look at the faces of the children, the soldiers, the homeless, the captives. See a rainbow emerging in the clouds. Behind them, the same sun shines every day over the Mediterranean, the Amazon, the children. Its warmth, a bandage that restores life. Yet still, in an imperfect world, yearning for rainbows, we can respect each other, celebrate our differences, agree to disagree. Then, when the sun sets and the moon rises over Gaza, Paris, Delhi, Jerusalem, the scars from our wounds will be reminders that we are all God's image, placed here to continue the work of creation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janice. Let's give her some more love, please. Well, that is pretty much all our poets. I want to thank you all for hanging out. Please remember that Jane is still here. Can we give her a little bit more love, please? That wonderful teacher, so articulate. And she'll be over here to sign her books if you would like to do that. Please remember, if you're watching us today online and you like how Jane read, www.palmfrondzoo.com, PALMFRONDZOO. Jimmy Collins said we must support our artist community, so we hope you get some business as well from that. And so here's our last poem for the day. I wrote this in a workshop with my veterans. You know, when you're writing in solitude at home, it's one thing, but when you're writing in community with other people, like the Steve Cowett workshops, or the John Fox workshops, or my workshops with veterans.
Or
There's
your
a
workshop at San Diego Writers.
or my workshop at San Diego Writers. There's a safety that's built in. There's a container of respect that's built in that you don't have when you're at home and that voice is going, well, that's not very good, or you're not a poet. And all that stuff that we deal with our own insecurities. That does not happen when you write in community. And so this was written in the winter of this year. Poetry is looking for me. Especially when Langston knows rivers, ancient dusky rivers, when Langston looked upon the Nile, perhaps paddled past pyramids when they were young, when he planted rice near the banks of the Yalu, when he talked with the Buddha after the Buddha rose from the shade of the Bodhi tree, when Langston was a warrior in the Underground Railroad and railed against slavery far from the mouth of the Niger, when Langston championed the good trouble of patriot John Lewis as the Mississippi flowed past the Freedom Riders. Yes, poetry is also looking for us as we stand on the shoulders of Langston and Claude McKay and County Cullen and James Weldon Johnson and Georgia Douglas Johnson and Jean Toomer and Zora Neale Thurston, all Harlem Renaissance poets right here in Black History Month 2024. We stand on the shoulders of Malcolm X and Medgar and Fred Hampton and Billy and Ella and Sarah and Etta and Lena and Shirley Chisholm and Coretta Scott King. I shout to my righteous father as we stand on the bones of Middle Passage martyrs, carpeting the floor of the sea. My righteous father, that day you embarrassed me in the streets of Pittsburgh when you screamed your racial epithets at my Muslim brothers and sisters. You were wrong, old man. You were wrong. Poetry looks for all of us. Thanks for coming.
I love that. I love it.
Thanks, Jim and Albert.
Thank you. Signing off.
Thank you.